Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the 41st episode of Wowhead Weekly. We have a bunch to talk about this week. Of course, 6.2 came out and all other sorts of stuff. We got interview stuff to talk about. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my lovely co-host, Wowhead site manager, Perculia.
Hey everyone! Like Panzer said, we have a lot to talk about and some pretty cool Wowhead announcements, so let's jump right into the first thing, which was a cool Wowhead interview we had with Ian Hazacostas.
We did. We interviewed Watcher Dev last week. It was very fun, very exciting, and we took a bunch of questions from the Wowhead comment section, from our Twitters and Facebooks, and compiled them all together, and we asked him all sorts of questions. I'm still bummed that he didn't give us any information about the Pepe costumes. How about you?
I know. I thought I was bummed that he didn't really tell us about Pepe, but I thought it was interesting how he said that the transmog storage system could be coming soon.
Yeah.
But faster than soon TM.
Yeah, because I had said, well, I'm glad to know it's at least on the back burner, and he was like, no. It's not on the back burner. It is actively being worked on. And I was like, oh.
That's yeah.
Yeah, I was excited to know that because, I mean, bag space right now is, like, kind of an issue. Like, my void storage is full. My bank is completely full. Everything is full. I'm out of space. Like, I can't even go look for more transmog if I want to because at this point I have to put it in my backpack.
Yeah, the salvage yard is really bad. That causes problems when I open boxes when I have the space. It's like, oh, you opened 2 boxes, now I don't have bag space.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to hear about that because that will be an enormous solution to that issue. The only other thing I would have loved to touch on that we didn't talk about was all of the items in game that are not vanity, that can't be transmog, but are really cool, like the spring Easter bunny ears and the halo that you get for Midsummer, and
they should be cosmetic.
Vile fumigator's mask is probably the coolest thing in the game, and you don't really ever see anyone use those things, and it would give more incentive to the holiday events. In retrospect, I wish we would have asked about that. But we did ask about some other things, like the difficulty difference between normal and heroic Hellfire Citadel. We touched on why all of the gear looks the same this patch. We talked about a lot of stuff. So
like the professions, like jewel crafting has this new creative system, but enchanting doesn't really have a lot of love.
Yeah.
And, why is that happening? So we talked about Tanan and toys and try to get more specifics on how items are determined to be toys that aren't the dartboard that was mentioned in the Reddit AMA. So we try to touch on a lot of things that people were curious about in 6.2 that very first week, including bugs like why the mailbox wasn't working.
Have they fixed it?
It was in recent notes that they were fixing it, so...
Okay, because I know they fixed, there was no return button for a little while at the same time, and I know they fixed that, but I'm not sure that they've fully fixed the bug.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the big one, but they're working on it. We did talk about a couple things that people were really interested in, like the gold mission changes to garrisons, and we got sort of a vague answer, but the TLDR version is don't be afraid to do your gold missions on your alts. It doesn't affect your main. That's not the way it works. It sounded to me like you just have X number that you are guaranteed to get per week, and then above that, that's where the nerf took place. So, I don't know. I got a 4,000 gold mission the other day, so I'm not complaining too much. You could still stack your treasure hunters. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little about the salvage yard nerf?
Yeah. So, basically, there's like too many salvage boxes, but also people were upset that it got nerfed. So we were like, are you happy with these changes? Do you still want to change things? And basically they said that they're still looking at statistics, how the salvage yard plays out, and that they wanted to reduce all the hassle of people just keeping around hundreds of unopened salvage boxes in their bags because they're such a pain to deal with. So that's why they tried to reduce all the great items that you would be getting. And they did feel that they did need to nerf it because it felt like it was a mandatory garrison building. Yeah. And they're trying to make garrisons feel like, not as mandatory and that you should have choice and not that one of your 3 slots is clogged up by this salvage yard.
Yeah, and just to touch on that a little bit too, I think that's a lot of the reason why the Ogre Waystation rush order is not being nerfed. Because the Ogre Waystation Spirit Lodge, depending if you're Horde or Alliance, it used to be kind of a very, fun building, but there wasn't a lot of purpose to it. You could do the same things without having it. So they added a work order now that allows you to get rush orders, and they work on the shipyard. So it's right now very advantageous to have that, but not so much so that you should destroy a building to have a Spirit Lodge. But it's definitely nice for people who had a Spirit Lodge previously and are now really seeing
I was kind of surprised by that, and I was like, hey, like, doesn't this mean you could just plow through everything super fast? And they're like, well, no, because you're limited on oil, so that will sort of, like, gate you into not doing every single mission instantly.
He said that basically if you're doing it in that way, that you're going to run out of resources, you're going to run out of oil, and sucks to be you.
Yep.
So if you guys are interested in watching that full interview, I'll go ahead and if you're watching this on YouTube, I will link it in the information below. But right now I'm going to flip it over to Perk to talk a little bit about PvP Season 17.
Cool. So the PvP season began this past Tuesday on July 1st. And the Wild Gladiator sets are now available, which are recolors of the Tier 18 PvE sets. So Normal and Heroic have blue and red colors, and the Mythic sets have sort of green fell recolors for Elite. And you can check out all the transmog sets in our database. And you can buy these new Wild Gladiator items, vendors that are right outside Ashran in Storm Shield and War Spear, as well as in Ashran directly. And I know a lot of people are asking if the Primal Gladiator looks are still available. Yes, they are. They are available now for Honor, and also available in Storm Shield and War Spear. And it's really funny because the NPCs have this little dialogue option where they're like, are you sure you want to buy this? Like, the NPC over there has much better gear. So
yeah, that's cute.
Yeah, I like that.
That's really cute.
And other rewards you can get is if you go ahead with the Raidal Battlegrounds route and you get your Vicious Saddle, there are more things you can turn it into, specifically the Vicious Meccano Strider and Kodo mounts. They look super cool. They're like the usual faction mounts with extra PvP doodads on them.
Yeah.
And we have some technical eye level changes with PvP gear. Basically, all gear now scales up to eye level 690. The Wild Aspirant, which is like the lowest tier PvP gear, is now 700 in PvP. Wild Combatant, which is the Honor gear, is 715. The Wild Gladiator gear, which is Conquest, is 730. And any PvE gear over item level 715 will be scaled down to item level 715, so PvE gear is not OP in PvP.
Yeah.
And if this all sounds really confusing, we added a scale eye level button on Wowhead item search results, and you can select that button, go down to the PvP option, and see a list of gear with what their eye levels would be in PvP.
Yeah, it's really nice. And that works for time walking and challenge modes, so that's a useful tool no matter what you're doing. And, of course, we still have a couple days left of the Midsummer Festival. There are 2 new toys, 1 new pet, and a title, plus all of the old rewards we were talking about a little earlier. There's, like, a halo you can get, and these shoulders that, like, beam light everywhere. So if you're into like RP type transmog, it might be something interesting that you might be into. And of course, fireworks over Azeroth are coming up, and Perk and I are celebrating the holiday by dressing extremely American today. My shirt actually has a wolf and an American flag on it. It doesn't
so
really
patriotic.
get more patriotic than that. And of course, there's fireworks over Azeroth, which is always a really fun event. There's hourly evenings fireworks. There's a special festive NPC in major cities that have set up tables with mugs and kegs, and if you dance with them, they will give them to you, and they'll celebrate good times, and you'll get plus 10 to all stats. The Goblin Guards in Booty Bay are all asleep. And the holiday fireworks vendors in capital cities will sell fireworks for you to use, and there are exclusive accessories like the Red Sparkler, which can only be bought on the 4th of July in-game. So I think it's really cute that they do stuff like that. It's kind of unfortunate for people who, like, Canada Day just went by, and I didn't see them giving out anything Canadian, but servers are based in California. What can you do?
I think that Europe gets a day in September as well. I'm not exactly sure, but I remember the Red Sparkler page was all like, oh, it's the July 4th in the US, but there's this other special day you can get it in Europe. So
oh, that's fun.
Yeah. That's fun. That's something nice.
And in addition to the fireworks over Azeroth, this is the very first Apexis bonus weekend. That's fun, right?
Yeah, well, it's kind of fun because of a bug. So
Elaborate.
So how it works is that during this time period, the Sign of Apexis buff means you get more crystals dropped by mobs in Draenor that already drop Apexis crystals, but there is this special quest you can pick up outside your town hall called The Time to Strike, which is to complete 5 Apexis objectives, and then you would get 5,000 Apexis crystals, 1,500 oil, and 100 garrison resources, except it's bugged right now. When you pick it up, it finishes instantly. So, you can get some free resources that way.
Oops. Oops.
But how it should work is that, you can do, like, your Tanan daily, you can do your, like,
Order of the Awakened
table, your mission, orders that you can buy, like the scouting missives.
Yeah.
So you can do a bunch of stuff. So it's not super hard if they fix it and you're watching the show and you're like, how do I do this now?
Yeah, if you were just doing your dailies in Tanan, you would get it in like 2 days. Pretty easy to get, and it's always fun because a lot of people, like, I'm personally saving up for the mount. I've seen a couple people with it already.
I know. That's pretty good.
I got my Apexis Garrison Monument. I know no one cares, but I was really excited about it. I got it like on, I don't know, I want to say like the 27th or the 26th. I was really pumped about it. And
is that your first monument?
It is.
Nice.
Shame. But I'll get two more in finishing the legendary quest, because there's one I'll get at the same time, and then I'll also have the one for the ring. So I'm going to put all of my pedestals to different monuments at that point. My goal right now is to get the pet battle one before the end of the expansion. So
that one is super cute with the little, like,
wolf.
Yeah, that is so cute.
It's super, super cute. But back to the Apexis bonus. There are guides on Wowhead for all the things in 6.0 and 6.2 that you can do to get Apexis crystals to complete that objective. And then, of course, there's a lot of things you can buy and get with Apexis as well. And Wowhead also has guides for all of the things you can buy, the 6.0 and the 6.2 ones. I think, what did you say? There were 6 pets, including a new one for 6.2.
Yeah, so just like recapping the 6.2 stuff, the Blazing Firehawk is a new pet. There's the new Corrupted Dreadwing mount for lots and lots of Apexis crystals.
So many.
There are the Baleful tokens you can get for 5,000 crystals, or the weapon for 10,000, and they create 650 or 675 gear. You can upgrade them with an item that's 20,000 Apexis.
Yeah, and not to interrupt, but that actually, item that you can buy to upgrade your Baleful gear is account-wide. So you can buy it on your main, and then if you get, like, one of the shipyard Baleful pieces and you send it to an alt, you can just give your alt a piece of 695 gear, which is super nice. Continue.
So you can also turn them in for Seal of Inevitable Fate, and they made the amounts lower in 6.2 than in 6.0, so that might be something you want to spend Spirit Apexis on.
Yeah.
There's the really cool Rookmar Sacred Memory, which is an Arakoa disguise toy for 50,000 Apexis crystals, and there's also a follower you can get from Order of the Awakened, Solar Priest Vakes, who comes at level 100, eye level 645 gear, and the unique Apexis attenuation ability to give you more Apexis from missions that have Apexis.
Yeah, I totally got him. I got all of the new 6.2 followers from the reputations. Nice. Yeah, I just hit Revered. Someday. I just hit Revered this morning, and I bought, like, the unsinkable blueprint and the toy and all of that stuff. So I should be revered with Order of the Awakened in the next couple days, because I got those at about the same rate. So
you got your Frostwolf disguise toy thing? Awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
That is very cool.
Yeah, and I got a couple ship blueprints and stuff, and I don't know, I think the Tanan dailies have been pretty fun, and I like the fact that you have to, like, go kill rares and get treasures, and it's not just, I don't know, go out and get 10 bears or something like Ian was saying. Although I will say my biggest gripe is that there aren't more repeatable treasures. Because being the idiot that I am, as soon as I got the treasure maps, I was like, I'm going to get all the treasures. And
now you're like, I need this for the daily.
I wish I hadn't done this. Like, I gave a heads up to my husband. I'm like, do not get all the treasures at once. You will have regrets. So he made better choices than I did. But moving on from all that, the Darkmoon Faire is coming up July 5th to July 12th. There are a bunch of new things coming with it, including mine and Perk's most anticipated thing of all time, Blorp. Blorp the
Blorp
fish.
Is amazing.
Blorp is, if you remember, we've showed him a few times on the show, he's just the derpiest fish of all the time, He's the derpiest fish of all time. He does not function as a battle pet. All he really does is, like, swim into your face and swim to the ground, and
his flavor text is really like, this fish does not pay attention to you.
So good. Then there is the translucent shell, which is very reminiscent of Ghost Crawler, and there's Hog's studded collar, which comes from the Whack-A-Knoll achievement. And you get like a mini Hogger who was data mined, oh my goodness, like back
like a year ago.
Yeah, like August of last year.
He was the original 10th anniversary reward.
Yeah.
And they just kept like repurposing him for all sorts of things.
I'm going to be honest, I'm really glad he didn't end up being the 10th anniversary reward, because as someone who's Horde, Hogger means very little to me.
Oh yeah, that's actually a good point.
You know, like I'm sure for Alliance that's like this big great thing, but I actually have never really played an Alliance. Like I have a couple alts here and there, but nobody I've ever played seriously. So I'm glad they didn't do that, because they would have really needed to do something for Horde as well, because that was very one-sided. So, but now there are getting back to the Darkmoon Faire, there are a total of 19 pets currently that you can get from the Darkmoon Faire, which is a lot.
Yeah, that's a sizable amount. And there's also, like, a lot of toys as well. So, you know, it's not just, like, some tiny little event. It's, like, it has a sizable amount. It's more than all the other holidays.
If you're a collector, it's definitely worth doing the Darkmoon Faire. There's mounts, too. There's, like, 4 or 5 mounts you can get, 19 pets, a bunch of toys. And they're good toys, too. Like, the wings are so cool. The blazing wings are, like, one of my favorite toys.
I like the Ring of Broken Promises, the Corrupted Blood Elf. That one is super cool. And that whole quest line and the NPC associated with that is some Dark Souls reference, so more bonus points there for game references.
I still don't have the Darkmoon Rabbit, and I think it's the funniest thing, and I really want it, but I never want to pay auction house prices for it. Anyways, back to the Darkmoon Faire. Again, there are 3 new cooking recipes coming with the Darkmoon Faire. The Darkmoon Fancy Feast, which is the fancy Darkmoon Feast. You can tell I have cats. I would call it the Darkmoon Fancy Feast. But it turns you into... Now, do you always turn into a Worgen, or do you just get the Worgen costume with the hat?
You just get the costume, and it's random if you get the tuxedo with a top hat or the dress with the cute little hat on the side. So
it's like
keep eating the feast.
Yeah, it's like Gilnean. It's very steampunky and proper and adorable. There's also the lemon herb fillet and the sugar-crusted fish feast. Now, what did the lemon herb fillet and the sugar-crusted feast do? Are they just the low B level buffs?
They give you versatility, and they scale up. So, like, one's like a solo food, one serves more people, and then the feast serves lots of people. So, you know, it's nice how it's like, oh, this restores 10% of your health every second, because it's not, oh, this restores 50 health, and you're like, why do I have this?
Yeah, so, that's nice. That's nice. There's also a new toy coming in the Darkmoon Faire in this week, the 5th. It's called the Seafarer Slide Whistle, and it makes a whistly noise. There are sound files for that on Wowhead. There is a new heirloom, which is the returning champion from the Deathmatch Pavilion. It is a ring.
It's a trinket. But it's very difficult to get, because you have to have completed the achievement for the Deathmatch Pavilion, which means you have to have looted the actual trinket 12 times.
Wow.
So you have to be winning the Darkmoon Deathmatch a lot of times before you get this.
Wow, that's serious.
That's intense.
I mean, people keep saying there's no PvP content. That was a joke. Don't have my head on a post, please. There's also some new potions coming in the Darkmoon Faire, the Darkmoon Firewater and the Darkmoon Daggermaw Fish. The Darkmoon Firewater makes you grow, gives you something. Can't remember what.
It helps you gather professions faster.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. And then the Darkmoon Adventurer's Guide will let you loot items from Warlords of Draenor content, which then you can turn in for tickets. So I think you need to get, like, the ears, the bloodied ears or whatever.
Yeah, that's one of the things. The Adventurer's Guide was also good because, like, back in MoP, if you killed certain end dungeon bosses, you would get an item, like Soothsayer's Runes for 15 tickets, and that wasn't working with current content, which didn't really make sense.
Yeah.
So, like, all those books were super expensive on the auction house because only low-Bs were getting these.
Yeah.
So that's, you can get, like, something like 90 tickets or something per month if you turn in all the books, which can help you then get all the pets and all those cool things faster.
So that's an update then, is more than anything. So that happened, and of course, we have Hellfire Citadel, the new raid, which is deceptively challenging. My guild's working on it on normal. We cleared, I wasn't there last night, but they cleared up to, who's the big red demon lady?
Tyrant Valari?
Yeah, they cleared up to Tyrant Valari. We haven't down her yet, so that's what's going on. You want to talk a little about Hellfire Citadel?
Yeah, so Hellfire Citadel... So, Hellbreach LFR Wing is now open, and that includes Hellfire Assault, Iron Reaver, and Comrock. And you need item level 650 to queue up, which shouldn't be too bad if you get some gear from your garrison missions and also those Baleful tokens, which are conveniently eye level 650. And the loot from Assault and Reaver is item level 675 with chance to be Warforged and all that good stuff. And the loot from Comrock is 685, and he drops LFR tier helms. These have 2-piece and 4-piece set bonuses, but they are different and not as interesting as the set bonuses from normal, heroic, and mythic. And the next wing, Halls of Blood, opens on July 14th, and you'll have 3 more bosses to kill then. And we have a guide up, we have detailed strategy guides, but if you don't want that, we also have the summary with tips that Blizzard provides if you just want to know what is the scariest ability in LFR and how do I move away from it. But if you want to know more about it, we have screenshots of everything harmful in our guides. So, also besides that, we have Hellfire Citadel Mythic, which opened, and the world first race is on. And all of our strategy guides have Mythic summaries and pictures from PTR testing. Our guide writer, Dayani, attended all the Mythic testing, took pictures of everything, tried to write up basic strategies so people going in there have an idea of what to expect. But something that we're really excited to announce is that Method is partnering with Wowhead again for detailed written strategy and video guides in the style of their High Mall and Blackrock Foundry guides for all of the Mythic bosses right after they finish clearing the instance. So we're really excited about that because they kill everything super quickly and
because they're good at the game.
Yeah, yeah, so get the in-depth strategy guides from the people that know these bosses the best. And
sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Method.
Yeah. So go Method, get world first. Last I checked, I think they were at like 9 or 10. I'm sure chat will correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And then we have to talk about this, although I'm going to be honest, I don't want to talk about it, but I'm going to be a guy and do it. So Mamie Twink interviewed Corey Stockton this week.
Yep.
And we got a little interesting tidbit of information, which do not freak out, okay? And I'll tell you why afterwards. But Perk, tell them what they said.
Okay. It's currently planned that Hellfire Citadel is the last raid for Warlords of Draenor, and they summarized it as, is currently planned, and that's the way we look at it, the wrap-up. It's hard to beat someone like Archimonde for a boss, as players know. He's a pretty amazing guy to fight. It's clear to players who have played the storyline, they saw Tanan Jungle at the start of their experience, and now they're wrapping around to it again, so we see that as the pinnacle of where players are getting to in the expansion. Alright, what are your thoughts?
Okay, I have a lot of feelings about this. Number one, why in the world did they tell Polygon like 2 weeks ago that 6.2 wasn't the final content patch, and then turn around and tell Mamie Twink that it is? Like, that seems very, like, inconsistent.
Yeah.
Number two, part of me feels like maybe this is like an M. Night Shyamalan, they want to plot twist us by, like, really building this up. So, like, I guess maybe that's what I want to believe. Maybe it's not that I do believe that, but I would like to believe that, because even Ian Hazacostas just said in the Q&A, a week and a half ago?
Yeah,
that 6.1 wasn't a real content patch. Like, he outwardly said, we messed up, there was no content in 6.1, right. We're sorry, oops, okay? Which was really impressive. You and I were both really, impressed that was said. And then not a week later, Mumper goes to a different fan site and says, oh no, you guys got patch 6.1 and 6.2, and now it's over. It seems like that leaves a lot of time to do one raid. Because if generally an expansion would be announced at BlizzCon, and even if an expansion was announced at BlizzCon and beta opened the next day, which would be highly unlikely that it wouldn't have gotten leaked by then, that would mean that the expansion wasn't coming until June or July. And if they're saying no raid until next expansion, that would leave us at a year of Warlords of Draenor, which in the Polygon interview, they outwardly said a year was too long for one raid. So it's just like, it's directly inconsistent. So I don't know how to take it, and I wish that if they were going to make these really bold statements, that it would be done in a Blizzard blog, so that there was no, oh, well, this person said this to this person, and this person said that to this other person. It's this, like, really big game of kind of, like, he said, and I have a lot of feelings, okay?
Yeah, my thoughts is that when I wrote the headline for that blog, I threw in the word planned in there because that's what they said. And it's not like, this is the last raid, the end. It's, this is the last raid that we have planned. But later in the interview, they talked about how stuff can be kind of fluid. Like, Farallon isn't in this expansion, but, oh, look, Tolbarad was planned during Wrath, but it ended up in Cataclysm. We've seen that, you know, Hallion didn't seem expected in Wrath, or Sunwell for Burning Crusade, but those things happened. And later in the interview, Corey Stockton was saying that they want to gauge what's going on with players and to see if they need to make additional content if they seem, if people seem like there's a raid going on, but they seem bored otherwise. So maybe that's something.
All right. Well, all right. And I know you're just repeating his words. And I guess to play devil's advocate, how on earth could they say, we want to know what players think, pay $60 for an expansion that's going to last 6 months of content, and then you don't get any new content until the next expansion? Like, how could they say that with a straight face? Like, people are already, like, I mean, you and I see a lot of feedback from players. Yeah. And, like, every expansion, and I'm a big proponent of this, is that you have to remember, everybody hates everything when it's current content. It's true. Right. I made a video about how much I wouldn't miss Wrath of the Lich King, and I will boldly put my foot in my mouth and say that, like, that was my favorite expansion, like, full of crap. Like, I made this whole video about all the things I wouldn't miss and what was so stupid about it, and, like, bull. I enjoyed that expansion a lot. So, like, I do like to keep that in mind, that, like, everything is, it's like grass is greener on the other side type situation. But in the same sense, how can you say a year was too long and then 2 weeks later have a lead game designer say, oh, well, we're planning it to be a year? What?
Yeah, the 6.1 wording was, it felt kind of unfortunate because, yes, if 6.1 was a big patch and 6.2 was a big patch, then sure, I could deal with 2 meaty content patches for an expansion if that meant the next expansion would go faster. But 6.1 was not really a meaty patch unless, I don't know.
I guess if you like lumped the fact that Blackrock Foundry was...
I suppose.
If you lumped, if Blackrock Foundry had been in 6.1, there could have been an argument for it. So I'll give them that. But there's been, I mean, and I see a lot of people like complaining about PvP. So PvP is something I do like want to talk about just a little bit. Other than Ashran, there hasn't been a new BG. There hasn't, like, there's been very little for players who enjoy PvP, and Ashran is a PvE-oriented PvP, and they gated all the PvP gear behind Ashran, so it forces players to do a BG whether they like it or not, which is, that's not fun for some people. I mean, I don't have a personal opinion on that, but I know that that's something I've seen a lot of, and I think that's a fair complaint, that they don't like to do this one specific thing, and they have to. And I mean, I'm pretty, it's pretty well known that I'm a Blizzard fangirl. In very few instances will I say Blizzard is wrong. And I don't think that in this case Blizzard is necessarily wrong. I just think the information we're getting is very disorganized. And it's not even consistent, so I can't get mad about this because I don't even know if it's true because it directly conflicts with what a different lead game designer said a week and a half ago.
Yeah, like, we held off with asking those sorts of blunt, you know, are we getting more content? Because we felt that we just wanted to follow up on the past Q&A and ask questions that players were giving us.
I didn't think they would answer it anyways. Like, I would have... because I would think that those would be things that would be saved for Blizzard announcements. I mean, they've got... Even if they wanted to do something like that, Comic-Con or whatever, like, those... I would think those types of announcements would be Blizzard announcements, not... interview. And generally interviews, the point of them is to kind of clarify on things that players don't understand from Q&As or from other announcements, or maybe there's a big patch and players have questions about the patch. Like, that wasn't a 6.2, that was a what's the future of World of Warcraft, and they set, and it's what's so bizarre to me though is that, like I said, just 2 weeks ago Polygon was told this is not the end, we have so much more story to tell. That's a quote. We have so much more story to tell. I mean, they had said a few times, well, it's not 2 patches, it's 2 tiers, and in Burning Crusade we had a lot of half tier type things going on, so like that was my assumption, is that there would be another raid that was like a half tier, or maybe something like Hallion or Eye of Eternity, that even if there wasn't a huge there would still be some sort of stepping stone before the next expansion. And I know that they said they wanted expansions to be shorter, to a year and a half, which would still line up about right if we had an expansion coming out in June, but that's still a year in one raid.
Something that I thought did work earlier in the expansion was that, and I want to say late December or early January, they did a, hey, this is what you guys can look forward to in the next few months blog, and they mentioned things like, you know, Blackrock boundary testing and the selfie camera and garrison improvements and Twitter integration that people could look forward to before any of the data mining or interview process started. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a good way of telling players what they could expect in the near future to avoid all that confusion. And it was an official blog that was, you know, right on their homepage. So I like that technique, and I think that they could be doing something like this for the next few months, being like, hey, heads up, there's flying, and you might see some other things, and I don't know. I think that would have been a better approach.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just think that when things are posted on Blizzard blogs, or even if it's a World of Warcraft tweet or Facebook post, I feel like you know it's coming from a unified place. Whereas when you're getting these huge pieces of like bombshell information from interviews, even the flying thing, when they originally had announced no flying, I feel like an interview was a very odd place to make that announcement, especially since it was like Memorial Day weekend when like people weren't going to see it as much. It just felt a little like not direct to the community, and I don't think that's the intention. I don't think anybody's we're trying to hide things. If anything, I almost think it's trying to like involve the community more, but I feel like it would have been more beneficial for all parties involved for them to have made the announcement and then done the interviews afterwards, so that people could gather community questions like, why this, why that, what about this, how about that, and get clarification, rather than making the announcement and then people just being stunned, and then there was like this radio silence. It just...
Yeah, it's definitely something they have to sort out between interviews and figuring out Twitter with Warcraft devs and how active to be on that, and
so
how to present communication front.
Bringing it back to where we started, I think that we probably should try to refrain from rioting. And that it doesn't... They also, like you said, they use words like planned and probably, so it really could just be it could all be smoke and mirrors. Or maybe we're going to get an expansion announcement, because if it's not smoke and mirrors, and if this is really the last content patch, we should be finding out about an expansion very soon. Very, very, very soon. And like, this is just something I've heard a lot of people say, and I feel like it's a fair point to make, is that if expansions are going to be 2 patches, they shouldn't be the same price as expansions that were 5 patches. That's kind of hard to get half the amount of content for the same price, especially considering you're already paying like a subscription fee and stuff. Like, I have no problem with smaller expansions, but it's not fair to ask people to pay $6.50 or $60, whatever it is. I always buy the collector's edition, but see, right. I sit here and complain, and I'm still full of crap. I'll still buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the argument would be that, oh, you get this free boost to whatever it's called, 90. But I see your point that there's less stuff you're getting on the box.
Yeah, and this is just things that I see people saying, and I hate when people say they feel like they aren't heard, because I feel like people are being heard, and just it's not. Perk and I have no power to do anything. We don't work for Blizzard. We aren't paid by Blizzard. I'm independent. But anyways, my whole point about this is I think that everything is very speculative right now, and try not to freak out just yet, because if they're saying that they're kind of playing it by ear to see what players feel, then maybe there'll be another raid, maybe there'll be a new BG, you don't know.
Yeah, actually, we had one more Hellfire Citadel point, and that kind of ties into that, because the interview was asking why Grom was swapped for Archimonde as the final boss, and they revealed in an interview like a year or two ago that Grom was going to be like the final boss of Warlords of Draenor. So obviously that was something in an interview that was another big tidbit of information that has now since changed based on player feedback and how they saw patches go out. And I know a lot of people were curious about this, so I'll just read the little summary of what they said for that. So basically, Archimonde seemed more of a badass, and he tied into larger things from other expansions. They decided to change it when they were designing Hellfire Citadel. They felt that they wanted to do something that felt a little more like epic, that would encompass more of the story outside of the Draenor timeline. Grommash originally was that vision, and he plays a big role, but Archimonde just felt more epic with the Dark Portal. Everything was on a grander scale. They still feel like Grommash is a pretty strong character. Making him not be the villain doesn't make him any less, but they feel that it lets you know the story of what's happening here is big, and it could affect the story in future expansions going forward, so it's not just this little self-contained alternate story, and now it's over.
Yeah.
So...
yeah, and I do like that point that things could be tied into the next expansion, that they're not just gonna be like, oh, time travel, oh, we're back to present time. Like, I do like the idea of like tying everything in like that, and I think there still is like a lot of potential. I really want to believe the interview that said there was so much left, not the interview that said there's nothing left.
Yeah, I mean, they did talk about how they thought Gul'dan was a really cool character, and they're like, hey, maybe you'd see him in the future, so, I don't know, maybe he'll be Hellion, something like that, but better.
Gul'dan is Hellion, confirmed. Anyways, moving on from all of that, and I'm sorry if I came across as being negative Nancy. I did not. That was not my intention by any means, but sometimes you just gotta get things off your chest. We did find out some more about upgrading the legendary rings to 795, and this was pretty cool, and as somebody who is raiding, I think this is a really nice incentive, because when you tend to get to end bosses, like by the time my guild was consistently downing Blackhand, because of all the garrison rewards and because we had run everything else so many times, I didn't need any loot off of him. Like, the very first time we downed him, I got the one thing I needed, and then I found myself being that guy who was like, do we have to do this? I don't want to do this, because it's such a long fight, and, like, it's just not fun. I'm sorry. Right. You get to a certain point when you're failing on a boss that you're like, I don't even care if he dies anymore.
Yeah, then it's like, oh, his loot's bad. Why do I want to? Like, I disenchanted it.
I think it was really smart of them to do something that would reward everyone for killing him every time. So that was really nice. And like you said, you did the math, and it was 20 weeks to fully upgrade. So you'll have to kill Archimonde 20 times to fully upgrade your ring. And,
Yeah, so the item is called Crystallized Fel. Important information. And it drops on normal, heroic, and mythic difficulty, so not LFR. And it takes 20 weeks because you upgrade it 3 item levels per week, and increases the stats as well as the effect. So, all parts of the ring get a boost. It's not just like your passive stats. It's also the thing that everyone can benefit from. Yeah,
it's also worth noting that you can only loot it in 1 difficulty per week. So if you're in a guild that's doing, say, heroic and mythic, or normal and heroic, you're only going to get 1 per week. Shares a lockout with all the other raids. Do you want to read the question that was in the interview? Sure.
It was basically, people are asking about upgrades for the legendary ring. Why is there 795 eye level in the data? And the answer was, once you have your legendary ring, those item upgrades drop from Archimonde. You can only get 1 per week, no matter the difficulty, but they will not drop in LFR. They are something that will allow you to keep increasing the power of your legendary ring. The proc scales up as well as the stats. It's another system to help guilds get stronger from week to week. Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing to note as well. Like you said, the actual proc of the legendary ring gets more powerful, so you're really helping everybody, not just yourself. And I really think, more than anything, though, the incentive of it is huge. Because, like I said, you get to the point where you're like, I don't need anything off of this. And you start to get selfish. You're like, I don't care if anybody else needs loot. This is horrible. I want to go watch Game of Thrones. Oh, that is from personal experience. So I think it's nice that they really gave these types of incentives. And I do think, like, I know there was a lot of controversy surrounding the eye level getting higher as you went into the raid, but I actually think that was a really smart move, because the farther you get into the raid, the bigger incentive there is to raiding. And that's how it should be. I mean, it gets harder. You should get a better reward for doing something harder. So I'm a fan.
Right, if you put the extra effort in, if you do something that's higher difficulty than LFR, you can unlock this way to make your ring be even better.
Yeah.
So, it's not just, like, you have to put some effort in to get those upgrades. It's not just every difficulty.
Yeah. And then moving away from raiding, just going on a different track completely. The Predator title was finally discovered this week, and this was something we had talked about in our Tanan Jungle video. It was brought up a lot of times when we were doing 6.2 stuff, that if you killed, Zermicol. That sounds like a drug. Yep. It sounds like something you'd hear on TV, like taking Zermicol may have all of these crazy side effects, but it's worth taking.
Like being ported to a rare.
That's so funny. So if you kill Zermicol, you will get the Predator title, but nobody found him. Everybody's like, where is this guy? There's all these rares. I see all these rares, don't know where he is. Well, you have to get the Master's Seeking Crystal, which requires Revered with Order of the Awakened. It's the epic version. And you'll need to have the Jungle Stalker achievement done, as well as Exalted with Order of the Awakened, in order for it to port you to him in particular.
Yeah, so basically, like, how the Seeking Crystal works, it ports you to a rare that you haven't killed yet. Mm-hmm. So if you kill all of them, you get Jungle Stalker done, and then if you're Exalted, it unlocks this other port option that then takes you to this cool phased area where he is, and he's kind of a tough fight. So, read up on the strat on the Wowhead page for his abilities. And something I think was really cool was that everyone was asking about this, and we found out about it because this EU player got it and then ran to Wowhead and decided to post about it.
Comment. Yeah, I saw that.
So
thanks,
that's really cool. Yeah.
So, and Wowhead has a whole guide on how to do him. So kill him. So if you are interested in that, check out Wowhead, and if you get the Predator title, let us know. We would love to see screen caps of that being over your head and whatnot, and any of your screen caps killing Zermicol
X. Yeah, let's call him X.
Rare X. If you kill him, you can take screenshots, you can upload them to Wowhead, and there's even a tab now on Wowhead where if you take a video of him fighting him, you can share your video with other Wowhead users, which could really help some people out. So feel free to do that. We love your feedback. Now this was my favorite thing to talk about this week. I don't know if anybody watched Downtime Tuesday this week, but Downtime Tuesday turned into like talk about all the bugs week. So I thought it'd be kind of fun if during Wowhead Weekly we talked about some of the notable hotfixes that took place. The King of the Jungle buff was fixed because for the first week I thought it was a hidden buff. No, it just wasn't working at all. So they fixed that. Thanks, Blizz. Also, most naval missions have been reduced to 18 hours or less, which is super nice because you can only do like 4 at a time-ish. Depending on how many ships they require. So it's nice that they reduced them so you can at least do them every day. Like, there were some that you weren't, they took forever. So they fixed that. They also made it so that your shipyard grants resting experience, which is that, now, did people want that for the instant logout or what? Because, like, I'm level 100. I don't really care if I get resting experience.
Yeah, I think it's the instant logout, like, oh, now I need to go back to my garrison town hall.
Yeah, I just assume I'm not going to get killed in my shipyard, so I just hit exit now. I don't know. The empowered Apexis crystals are BOA, which I talked about earlier, and this kind of led me to the question of then why aren't all Apexis gear BOA? I guess because that's the expensive part. So I guess, like, your low-level characters can get, 5-10K Apexis crystals in a day. They can get a couple pieces of gear, and then your high-level characters that have all this Apexis banked can just send them the big upgrades. I just don't see, like, they should just raise the prices, make them BOA.
Yeah, I'm a little confused how the items from the shipyard and the Call to Arms dungeon satchels are BOA, and they're also called Baleful, but then the items that aren't BOA are also... I just feel that they need different names.
Yeah, they need different names. It's confusing. Or they need to make them all BOA or BOP. I don't really care which. Your bonus rolls will now work on Kha'Zix, and I didn't write this in the notes, but also if you were using your Call to Arms, the Garrison ability, the first week, they would taunt Kha'Zix off of the tank.
That's terrible.
They fixed that. So you can safely use your Garrison ability on Kha'Zix. And they also did a lot of tweaking to set bonuses and trinkets and stuff like that, which if you're interested in your individual character, check out Wowhead for more information. There were also a couple really, like, funny hotfixes. Like, someone pointed out in one of my videos that apparently druids can now stealth while sitting. Good. Just what we needed. So there were a lot of little funny things like that. That's, like, my favorite part of a patch. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I just think it's funny to see all the silly little things that went wrong, and then people found them, and apparently there was something... I I can't even remember what it was, but there was a guy in like a low-level dungeon that could for some reason be pulled all the way out of the dungeon. Does anybody in the chat know what I'm talking about? Someone will say it in a second. We'll move on to the next part, but someone will bring it up because it was over and over again in my comments, but I haven't had enough coffee today, so I can't even remember what it was. You want to talk about some of the potential upcoming changes?
Yeah, so just circling back to the Mammy Twink interview again, it wasn't all sort of big news bombs about 6.2. They were also talking about some ways they wanted to change dungeons, so dungeons wouldn't just be something you felt compelled to run on alts, but not your mains. And they wanted Mythic Dungeon gear to have an extra layer of Warforged, and as you currently know, Mythic Dungeon gear is 685, and Warforged is a 20 item level boost, not a 6 item level boost. So if they have an extra level, that's potentially like 725, so that could be pretty big. And the completing the time walking quest, they're debating it could award a normal mode Hellfire cache in addition to the seal. So none of this is live yet, but they were two ideas that they were throwing around at the interview as ways to get your main in there to run dungeons in 6.2, and I think those are pretty good changes if they go ahead with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shouldn't just be like, oh, my main raids and my alt is dungeons, and that's it.
Yeah, and I think even like you said, like the thing with time walking now, getting a seal, like I did it. There was a seal involved. Getting extra seals is so worth. Everybody in chat did know what I was talking about. It was Helix Gearspark from Heroic Dead Mines. Oh,
yes.
You can take him out of the instance and like bring him into BGs and stuff. Like he just.
Okay, I remember seeing
this now. So that was like a pretty hilarious bug that I don't think they've fixed yet. I think that's still happening. But yeah, anyways, it was really important for me to bring that up. There's also Wowhead giveaway for Spectral Tiger perk.
Yeah, so we are giving away a Spectral Tiger to one lucky winner, and this is to celebrate the revamp and relaunch of our class guide section. We've had them for about a year. People have liked them, but we thought they could be better, so we revamped them. We have guides for each spec now. We have guides to tanking overviews, DPS, range, melee, healing. We have links to the guides on our talent calculators. We've done a lot of improvements. We have embedded talent calcs on our talent pages. Lots of cool things. And basically just head on over to our announcement post and leave a comment with what your main spec is for 6.2, and you could be entered into this awesome Spectral Tiger mount.
Oh, it's a sick mount.
It's 2 mounts.
It's actually 2 mounts. Yeah. And so when you redeem them, they are given to you. They're not like added to your logs. So if you win the 2 mounts, I'm gonna be honest, I think the rare one is better than the epic one. I
agree. It is less armor.
Okay, yeah, I like the one with less armor. And the one with more armor sells for like 200k. So you could make a ton of gold, or you could give it to a friend, be like best friends for life, or you could keep them both and add another mount to your collection. Or you could sell it for 200k and then add like 4 new mounts to your collection with the money that you spent. So definitely worth entering. You might win. You never know. Everybody from our Perk did all the giveaway stuff recently, but anybody who won a book has been contacted. We have your info, and they will be going out next week. I was going to mail them out this weekend, but the post office is closed because of the 4th of July, and the books are so heavy that I physically cannot do it. Like, I need someone to go with me who can carry heavy things. So I'm sorry for the 3-day delay on that, but I don't really there's not much of a gun show going on here. Does anybody have any questions in the chat before we wrap this up? Also, thank you so much for 280 people watching us right now.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
A lot. And thank you so much. I hope that we haven't disappointed you with our extreme patriotism.
Yeah, just as we're waiting for chat to catch up with us, I'll just circle back to guides a second and say that Sarah and I spent a lot of time listening to feedback and revamping the guide layout. So if you have any feedback, let us know. And if you want to see any more guides about classes or tools we can do, I don't know if there's a class equivalent of slash flying, we can make lots of tools on Wowhead. So if you want anything class related, any resources, guides, tools, features, let us know, and we might be able to do that.
You know, and I'm going to be honest, Wowhead is impressively fast with turning over tools. Like, the day flying was announced, Perk had a tool ready to go in, like, 5 hours. So she means it. If you think there'd be some sort of cool tool and it seems useful, you should definitely suggest it in the comments because it could be a thing. It could be a thing.
I budget some time for this. Like, we have long-term projects we work on, like the dressing room tool or transmog or, you know, different data things, but we do try to budget some time for feedback that users have and features that could unexpectedly come up based on announcements.
Okay, well, this kind of is on that. Wowza1121 asked if there are guides or if there are going to be guides on PvP since we already have a bunch on PvE.
There could be. It's just simply that not as many people PvP, so we haven't done that in an organized fashion as much. But if you are interested, you know, email me, send me a tweet, and we can see about, you know, you writing some guides and getting them featured on Wowhead, and we can start going from there.
Yeah. Yeah, even if it was just something like rather than like class guides for PvP, but like this is how you do this BG.
Exactly, that would be good.
This is a good strategy for this.
We did a School of Hard Knocks guide last year, and people seemed to like that one, so, you know, basic PvP concepts, that would be something cool to look into.
All right. JFox43921 asked, what do you think is the future of World of Warcraft, and how much longer do you think it can last? You go first, then I'll go.
Okay, so I think that it's always going to stay here, and they recently expanded the team in the last expansion. They brought that up in a past interview, and it's always going to be around. It's, you know, it fits into their cycle of Blizzard games. Warcraft characters are now in Heroes, and if there's a lot on Warcraft, you can play Hearthstone or Heroes, and it seems that there is a cycle where each game is always getting something new, and we're going to have a Warcraft movie coming next year. Like, that's going to be huge for the game.
Yeah.
So I think that we might see the pattern of how many patches we get per expansion change, and there might be BlizzCons where, like, the one last year didn't focus on WoW, and we're used to having past BlizzCons always be very WoW heavy. So I think we're going to see news for other games get rotated, but I don't think WoW is going to really go anywhere. It's always going to just sort of be there and be Blizzard's, backbone with all the, money they generate from subscription costs and the WoW token and all those things.
I agree. I don't think WoW is... I'm not sure that it could last for literally ever, but that's a very hard thing to gauge because MMORPGs have only been a thing for, maybe 15 years?
Yeah.
So it's... And WoW has been around for the majority of that. WoW has been around for 2/3 of that. So I think that WoW definitely has a definite lasting impact, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think it's going free to play anytime soon. It's still the biggest MMORPG in the world by a landslide, and I think it would take... I think WoW will last as long as Blizzard wants it to last. And I think that even at whatever point it is that Blizzard decides to stop updating WoW, I think that there's such an intense fan base for the game, which is why you see people get so upset about things. People don't get upset about things because they hate WoW. They get upset about things because they love WoW. That passion comes from a place of fandom and a place of really caring about the game. And I think that even if at some point Blizzard decides to, WoW isn't their thing anymore, it's free to play, they're not updating it anymore, I still think there are people that would do things like, an example would be like Project 99 for EverQuest, like people who run those things privately so that people can continue to enjoy them. So I think, much like Perk said, regardless of what Blizzard does, and I'm talking like 10 years in the future, if anything, I don't think WoW is going anywhere. And I think, if anything, it would just evolve into whatever genre made successful sense at the time. Exactly. Yeah. So I don't think it's going anywhere. And I think a lot of people see things like, you see a lot like, oh, well, there's this 3 million subscriber drop. And I think that's an unfair number to throw around because there was a 3 million subscriber increase with the 10-year anniversary and the new expansion and all these commercials during the Super Bowl. And there was all these people who joined, either brand new players that had never played before who were like, oh, what's this? I'm in. Or people who were like, oh my god, 10-year anniversary, this is a game I used to play, I should come back, I should give the expansion a try. And then whether maybe some of those people stayed, it ended up being a wash in the end. We're at about the same amount of subscribers we were at in Miss the Pandaria.
Yeah.
So
also, if you look at the numbers for other games, it seems that people, when there's always earning reports, WoW gets fixated on, but if you look at something like Heroes, Heroes is not the top streaming game. Some people tried to look into the numbers on the ESPN broadcast and were like, oh, this was low for a Sunday night, but it's still, Heroes is considered to be a successful game. It has a presence. People that don't want to play WoW and they'll play Heroes instead for fun. It's good at getting casual players into a new genre. So, we have to just put it in the grand, scheme of things instead of being like, oh, WoW lost X amount of million people when it's still a really popular game and has such a big impact and cultural presence.
And it's funny because that is sort of a hard thing anyways, because most MMORPGs don't even release numbers like that. You have to find them out from people data mining stuff and having these websites that scan things like the Armory and for other games to even try to get an estimation on how many subscribers they have, because that's not something that most companies even release to the public. So the fact that they're releasing those numbers just says a lot about where the game is. Plus, it's not like subscriber number is the only thing that keeps WoW going. They have They have plenty of money, guys. Yeah. they have plenty of money. So, do you feel, this is from Invictus75 at Twitter, and it says, do you feel that Blizzard is pushing for faster development cycles, is harming the game or helping the game?
So, I think the game is changing over time, and the player base is changing as well. I've been playing for 9 out of the 10 years, and my time schedule and everything is very different than it was back then. My patience and tolerance and all that. So I think it has to adapt. I'm like, oh, BC was amazing and so was Wrath, but I don't know if current day me would enjoy them as much because I'm in a different place in my life.
Yeah.
So,
I played a lot of WoW during Wrath.
Yeah, same. I was looking back and I'm like, wow. That's interesting.
When did I go to work?
Yeah, basically. So, if they want to have 2 patches per expansion and say, hey guys, you're going to have these awesome patches that are going to pull you in, but also not make you feel bad when real life crits you and you can't get everything done.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, but 6.1 was odd, So,
well,
I'm okay. I'm okay if they want to do it faster, just, tighten up the communication, and I need to just take off my nostalgia goggles sometimes instead of being like, oh,
yeah,
things were amazing how they were. Because even ICC was super long, Black Temple was super long.
Yeah.
But I just was finding all these extra things to do.
I think part of the reason that ICC being so long was a more tolerable experience is that I think pugging was at its peak in Wrath of the Lich King. I think you saw a lot of people Nick and I, my husband and I, used to run a pug every single week on our alts, and we would have people messaging us in game oh, can I get a spot in your pug this week? And it wasn't just us. There were probably 5 or 6 other people on the server who were known to run pugs at the same time every week, and you used, well, at the time it was Ventrilo, and I think organized pugging with people on your server and having that reputation was still a thing. And I still firmly to this day believe that Dungeon Finder and LFR really negatively impacted the community feel of World of Warcraft, which is something that I'm actually really enjoying about Mythic Dungeons, because you're having to queue up with people, you're having to be patient, you have not queue up with people, you can't queue up with people, so you're having to find people, whether it's via the tool in-game or just spamming trade or standing by the summoning stone works. It really does. People run there waiting to go. So I'm really liking that aspect of teamwork is coming back. And it's funny because they're called Mythic Dungeons, but they're very similar to BC difficulty heroics, where you have to kill things in a specific order and you have to CC. And I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun with that. But as far as the question of faster expansions, I think that we all need to keep in mind that I feel like so much of Warlords of Draenor was an experiment, and that's okay. I feel like Garrisons was a huge experiment, and the way they handled professions was obviously very different than they have in any other expansion.
Yeah, reputations, the whole item tech system to turn items around faster. I like the treasures, questing, that was different as well. More freeform. So.
And I don't even mind the idea of a 12 or 18-month expansion, but like you said, I think that the communication needs to be tightened up with players. I think Blizzard should be Blizzard directly should be the first source for information, because it feels like they're telling you things. Like it feels like, hey, players, this is what we're doing. Aren't you guys excited, or what do you think? And I think people like feeling that feedback. So I have no issues with the expansions being quicker and shorter, as long as they're well planned and well paced. And
like, mini patches are good too. For example, like, if we have this flying thing to look forward to in a few weeks, that would be cool. Or the weekend bonus events are a good step, where if there's no new content, you could still be like, hey, 2 months after the patch, Time Walking Wrath is going to roll around. Like, let's go do this for fun. I haven't been able to do this.
Yeah, I do think the bonus events I think that was an experiment that's going to work out really well for them. I think, and I really appreciate that they included PvPers in that. I think that that is a place that a lot of people feel like if they're PvPers and they don't really PvE, that they get overlooked. Like, an example was last expansion, they had PvP stuff in the Legendary Cloak. Even PvPers needed the Legendary Cloak to, be competitive. So they were forcing PvEers to go do raids. So you were getting an LFR and in pugs with people that were in full PvP gear. And that kind of reduces the fun for both parties, because nobody wants to be that guy who's in the wrong gear, and nobody wants to be in the raid with the guy who's in the wrong gear,
or the battleground with the guy in PvE gear.
Exactly. So I think that you have to remember that they're always trying to improve the game and make the game better and do new things and be innovative, and sometimes that means there will be bumps in the road, but you can't have progress without having a few failures along the way. So I'm perfectly fine with slower, with faster paced expansions, as long as they are on pace.
Yeah. And still high quality. Like, you don't want a buggy expansion.
And this is a good question you might like. Oh, we answered one from him already, but it's a good question, so I'm doing it.
Okay.
Wowza1121 asked, Wowhead, have you ever or will you ever bring an add-on aspect to the site? I know when I started this add-on thing, people would talk about it, and it was so confusing, and I think maybe it would be helpful if you had some sort of guide to add-ons for beginner players.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are some guides to add-ons that users have submitted, so we can definitely highlight those more. And we actually, with our class guides, we added a section to every spec on useful add-ons that you'd want for your spec.
Nice.
So yeah, we have like a macro and add-on section. So, some of them cover the basics, some of them are more specific. If you're a new player, you don't need a billion add-ons, but we have some recommendations, and I'll see if I can dig up the add-on guide and get that attached to that part of the guide if you want to read more about them. So yeah, good idea.
All right, well, I think we answered a few questions. If you guys have any additional questions, if you're watching the VOD of this on either YouTube or Wowhead, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and maybe we will get to them next week or answer them in the comment section. Thank you so much to everybody who watched. There's a ton of you guys, and we really appreciate it. We were a little nervous about doing it this week because so many people had the day off. We weren't sure if people were going to be like outside barbecuing or whatever.
I'm hungry now.
I know, me too. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Perk. Just for being you.
Yay. So, have a good holiday weekend.
Yeah, so we're going to go. I hope you guys all have a great holiday weekend. Oh, side note, I'm really sorry about the awkward outro on the dev interview that we did last week. I don't know what happened, but I'm usually responsible for opening and closing videos. And when it was over, I just, deer in the headlights, was not prepared. And I didn't even say bye. I'm like, okay, we're done. And he's like, bye. And I was like, yeah, bye. It was by far the most...
You were crit by too much information.
I absolutely was not prepared for the video to be over. Like, I don't even know what I was thinking. I watched it back and was like, that was the most awkward I think I may have ever been in my life. Like, I was waiting for everybody else to do it, and then I was like, oh my god, this is my job. Bye. So if you watched that, please have a laugh at my expense. It was 100% my fault, and I'll try to do better going forward. But for the meantime, we are going to go Happy Independence Day if you're in the U.S., Happy Canada Day last week if you're in Canada, Happy 4th of July if you're everywhere else we're going to go. I hope you guys are having a great week. We'll see you next week. Goodbye. Bye.